and our responses, particularly in the light of freshwater and carbon. And that's fantastic and essential, of course, but it's very easy to lose sight of a couple of things. One is that people need to be able to farm profitably, they need to be able to farm productively, and they need to be able to fit farm systems to the land and the climate and the people in a way that provides the best outcomes. And that is, and this is where I'm heading, that is a complex jigsaw puzzle. Right? It's not easy to kind of say how do we fit a farm system best to the land and everything else that goes around that. And it's very easy in today's world of sort of 20-second sound bites to look for what's the silver bullet. Oh, we just feed our cattle seaweed and we'll be right, or whatever else it might be. And we know that farm systems are complex, they have feedback loops, it's not that simple. And today we have some people in the room who have some fantastic experience and some learnings from working through farm systems in both a research and a practical way. So we're very excited to hear from those people. I'm going to invite Graham Ogle to come up now, and Graham's going to jump up and down during the day introducing people. I guess Graham has done a lot of work in recent weeks working with many of you, organising today, and on behalf of Rezare Systems, we're very grateful for that work as well. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you, Andrew. Rezare's been planning to run this workshop for quite some time, and it's a real pleasure to have a room full of all the people we want here for this workshop. What I want to do is just cover why we're running the workshop and a little bit about how. I think this is a chance for... Rezare's been looking for the chance to have a bit of a, and I found the word the other day, a policy refresh, a strategy refresh, sorry. Very cool word. And we thought, what better way is there to have a strategy refresh than invite all the right people, and we think you're all the right people, to a venue and talk about what we see as really valuable to farmers. What is value? What is value when we say, of all the things we can provide a farmer, what are the valuable things? I guess I started my career, my idea of that really was forged out of when I started my career in the 1980s, which meant that I had 2 decades of excruciatingly low product prices to work with for farmers. I remember sitting with a farmer one day, he was in trouble, the farm was going to get sold up, and I thought, if we get $35 a lamb, you'd be right. And of course, the markets weren't delivering that. Now, you can adjust that by whatever you like, whatever inflation index you like. The CPI would mean that farmers today would be getting $55 a lamb. And I imagine our budgeting would be even more difficult today given the increase in costs. Dairy farmers were getting $2.40 a kilo of milk solids. I mean, it's almost unheard of. And if we ramp that up by the CPI, we'd be talking about a payout today of $3.70. So this was a sort of the anvil that forged my early career, and going out to do things for farmers that were of value. The biggest value we could do for farmers then was increase their profitability, and that started to address all the other problems that were on the farm. So when Rezare set out, as we did in 2004, as a group dedicated to agricultural software development, often we sit around and think, is our strategy aligned with where the value is in the industry? Are we aligning our investment in resources where the value resides in the industry? So what we're going to do today is we're going to think, how might we align our investment with what top farmers are saying is important to them? And I can't think of any better way to start this workshop than listening to some top farmers. So that's what we're doing. I think consulting is also an extension of farming, and we'll listen to consultants after that. The farmers that we'll listen to have been through some process of change or intensive planning. And it's from those discussions that we hope you'll pick up some things about what they value. And maybe a successful outcome of this workshop is if you go home and think, hey, maybe we need a strategy refresh as well. All right, this is the last segment of the day. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 exciting speakers to hear from. The first speaker is Dean Williamson, who is the, I think, CEO of GlobalHQ. And we've done a bit of work with Dean. We did a bit of a design thinking workshop to look at how, in particular, the livestock pricing that they provide through what was called Livestockeye. Tremendous service, by far the best information of livestock pricing in New Zealand. Dean's not a guy you hold down for very long, and he's flat out doing a whole lot of other stuff as well. And every time I talk to Dean, I get a pretty good download. So I'm going to be very interested to hear what you're talking about today, Dean. Come in, Dean.
Graham?
You're on, Dean.
We are here.
Over to you, Dean.
Rightio, hello everybody. Yeah, Dean Williamson here, and I've got with me William Hickson is is one of our AgriHQ analysts, and is going to be able to talk with you just around the Livestockeye. Given that you guys are busy, had a big day, we'll crack straight into it, and then if there is any questions at the end, we can do that. Sorry I can't be there with you guys. Up and down the road so often is just not possible. So we've been in and out all day. I think William's been in most of the day, so great work. We're going to share the screen, so I'll share that now, and then William can start on the AgriHQ data. So as far as we go there, everything's working all right. You can hear us and things. Lots of nodding. So we're going to go with a shared screen and kick off. Jesus, how to lose everybody. We're screen sharing and they can hear us.
Yeah, so I thought I'd start with a bit more of the data heavy side of GlobalHQ, which is AgriHQ. And we run a business essentially selling reports on livestock pricing, both what happens today in terms of what prices were gathered at stock sales on the day, and then that then feeds into other reports that allows farmers to predict livestock pricing over the next week, and also into the future over kind of a six month to 1 year period, because it's while most people so far have been focused on production on farm, you can make a much more efficient beef cow, but if you could sell your cow for 20 cents a kilogram by selling it a week earlier or a week later, that's another way to make money essentially. So we do that in two ways. We literally have a person at every sale, or sometimes multiple people at sales, reporting what price livestock went for, but we also have people on the ground weighing, like we have our own weigh crate for sheep, and we weigh every single pen of store lambs at various sales, and we then report on the sales as a whole. So a lot of sale yards have more than one livestock company that will be putting their customers' cattle through the sale yards, and they report independently of each other, whereas we consolidate it all into one spot. We figure out what might have happened to that sale, what might have influenced prices, whether some of them were off types or had withholding periods, things like that. And we then report it back to farmers and various rural professionals what actually happened at that sale. So this is a Livestockeye report from last week. Where we can see that we've collated that there were over 10,000 sheep at the sale, and then using our the data that we've collected by weighing all the sheep, we then present them down into weight grades, what cents per kilogram they made, whether that weight grade came back or was steady, things like that, and we report on what happened this week, what happened at the last sale, and what happened at the same time last year. And then using our historical data, we're able to present kind of the 5-year average, what happened last year and what happened this year. So you can see here that prices have been trending upwards and it's quite a way above what happened last year and the long-term average. So this is the store lambs. We also use our background knowledge to spit out wool breeds because they're priced differently to your normal white-faced or black-faced lamb, and then also down to our prime sheep, which are like the finished animals, things like that. And because we have people at the sales, you can see we're able to. That's a photo of the sale yards last Tuesday. So we cover 10 or 12 sale yards around the country, and though that produces a report of what happened at that sale on that day, and we then bring that data and are then able to forecast. Let me get to the one behind. Forecast what we think will happen next week. So this is a Livestock Insight report that takes that data. The analysts produce some articles based on what they think is going to influence prices over the next week, so and things like that. So we talk about the weather, but then bring it across to what happened in cattle, what we think is going to happen with cattle, and also for sheep. So over here for slaughter prices, we were predicting that this week it was going to be a level of $5.50 for 300k bull carcasses, but we were predicting a 10-cent rise in the following week. So this allows our subscribers to, we help them predict when the best time to sell their stock is going to be. Yeah, and that then flows into other reports for kind of over the next 6 months. We also do forestry, things like that. And we're independent of all of the stock selling companies and processes and things like that. So our data is trusted within the industry, and we get used as benchmarks for a lot of companies and government and things like that. Is that good?
Beautiful. Yeah, it is a bit of a background there. Thanks very much, William. So what we've got here with AgriHQ is 20 to 30 years of livestock market data. It's sitting in Access spreadsheets at the moment, so not very agile, but our analysts, over the 3 years since we bought the business back off NZX, it has been about increasing the team, building the relationships, and actually making sure that the business is a lot more sustainable than it was when we bought it. Where we're at the moment is that we're talking with partners, potential partners in the marketplace, and so we're open for more of those discussions. We've got that data. Our belief here is that data really only has value when it's shared, like knowledge. It has value when it's shared, and so it's who we can work with or what data this should be dovetailing and working with, and being able to then be able to deliver real value back to where the data starts, basically for the farmers. So I know that those are some of the discussions that have been had there today, and that's certainly our thinking as well. How do we actually build this out with other data sets here in the industry to deliver solutions back to farmers that are going to give them the assurance they need in their own decision making? Because that's a nut that, and I think it's fair to say that from the farmers' lenses, we haven't been able to crack for them entirely yet. We've been talking with Gallagher, so our data scraped from sale yards each week, or all the key sale yards throughout the country. We've just entered into some discussions now with Gallagher, but they're only very early, and that's about improving our ability to get that data out and capture it, and then to be able to work with them perhaps on data that they have to be able to then create more value back for the industry. And I think that takes us on, and it was something that Fraser said earlier on, the communication is everything. Well, obviously we're a bit of a communications company with all our various products here at GlobalHQ, so I fully agree with that. And it was something that John said, I never underestimate my ability to trip over the obvious truth. I think the real obvious truth that we all talk about when we go to every conference we've been to for the last 20 odd years has been about how do we collaborate more and tell our story better. So that collaboration part of it is something that I think with the farmers are feeling fairly disenfranchised at the moment in their decision making, and so the sort of work that you've got there trying to help them with decision making is absolute gold. And that is our second piece of work, really. And I'm going to come back to, we've just launched this whole idea. Does that just pull down? This is really ugly up here, isn't it? Without buggering, but I'm going to leave it there for the moment, is the agripreneur community and website. Our whole aim with this is to be able to create some kind of an online community, and that community where knowledge can be shared and provides people with an opportunity for a lifetime of learning. Hence the logo, which is tying the threads in the industry that speaks collaboration and handshakes, but it also, the whole idea of creating a community, in a digital environment. So you can have a look at these, obviously the AgriHQ site and then this agripreneur.com site as well. The idea of the community where collaboration can happen is what we're about, and we've worked hard here. Obviously the news, the market information, education and training and weather are our 4 engagement pillars, and so using global leading technology and behind those, including Teachable here, and we're building this one out, Teachable here and the IBM supercomputer here on weather. We've partnered up with WeatherWatch to do that. And so we've just launched now our Pulse online newsletter, so please go and have a look at that. Subscriptions have started this week, but it's about bringing that community together where we can actually then have a community online. Our next stage after this is going to be to build, if you think of Yakka in Australia, eventually it is about being participatory led, so that the farmers are actually feeling as though they're part of the crowdsourcing strategy. So that's essentially the GlobalHQ vision. I'll take off the sharing now so that I can see you guys. Stop sharing. And are there any questions, or are we moving straight on to the next one?
Can you hear me, Dean?
Yep, just faintly there.
How about now?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Alrighty, so no, we won't have any questions, Dean, but I'm sure people have got questions. We just haven't allowed any time. Thanks, Dean. Look, I know you've been incredibly interested in developing a community, and in a way you've got one. You've got a huge readership membership, a huge subscription base, and it's going to be really exciting to see how you use Pulse and agripreneur to create and build that community that you've been so interested in. And I would suggest that once that community's built, there's an incredible extension pathway there for anyone who wants to work with Dean.
So I guess stand in front of the microphone. Just a few reflections on the day, and I'll keep this brief. So the first thing I thought about was the messages from our practitioners in the morning sessions. So the people, the farmers and the people who are working closely with farmers. And they talked about, unashamedly stolen from your slides, folks, people, planet, performance, and I've just kind of expanded those out a bit more. We talked about the importance of people, and I think we've reflected on that during the day. There were questions about what's stopping data interoperability, and the answer was people. There were questions about how do we get adoption. We talked about the need for specialists, and so a lot of it comes back to the importance of people in our thinking. Mathematical equations are great, but people are very important. Planet, we've talked about the need to make sure that we're farming within the constraints that we've got and doing the right things for our land and our planet. Performance, and I've added, and productivity there, and Martin's questions are good ones. We want to include, we know we often fall into talking about improving production, right? And we know we don't want to talk about improving production, we want to talk about improving productivity, the measure of what we're getting out, and the bottom line measure of that is profit, as long as the other factors are equal for the amount of inputs put in and for the amount of emissions going out. Then something that I got out of those farmers who talked this morning is their strong emphasis on planning, on the processes that they and their teams follow, the communication of those processes, and the precision with which they go and measure. They identify what are the important things for them to measure in their systems, and they go and measure them. And together that, that was talked about as systematization, turning things into a system that's repeatable, and I think that's key. So some great learnings for me in those areas today. We talked, for those who are involved in research and in governance, we talked about capabilities. And I guess my reflection, thinking about some of the presentations, was the amount of amazing capability that we've had leveraged in this sector over many years in our science R&D and all of the things that underpin that. Some fantastic capability. And I think that goes to the heart of what you were talking about before, Graham. Other countries are investing in their core competencies, and in New Zealand we've made a lot of investment, not enough, but a lot of investment in building capability in pastoral agriculture and its underpinnings, which has been fantastic. There's some really valuable collections. We talked about the virtual climate stations, we talked about S-maps, and we've talked about some of the other collections that are out there. I didn't want to just say databases because there's a lot more than just databases. Almost every speaker talked about the opportunity to collaborate further, to engage further, to use data from other sources, whether that's climate stations or soils data or any of the other data sets that are potential to use, and the opportunity to engage together. And we see that in some of the collaborative projects that have been done. We talked a little bit about data integration, and to me there's some real benefits in being able to link data and to have common identifiers and all of those necessary things that make it easier to connect the dots between systems, and also consistency in meaning and interpretation, and are we talking about the same things? And then this afternoon we talked about our, and I'm playing some fun games here, but we talked a little bit about sensing. We started off by talking from space, which is very much built on sensing technologies. But I thought, particularly when I was listening to Dean as well, that's another great example of sourcing data so that farmers aren't having to go and measure it. Imagine if you as a farmer, and farmers did have to do this, some still do, go and attend every sale yard that they can so that they know what the prices are. Try and keep their own little book so that they know, where prices are heading. But there are tools that can deliver that data just as space can deliver pasture cover data. And I think we saw through the work that Ravensdown and Balance are doing a bunch of other sensing and use of predictive tools to take some of the effort that farmers would have out of sort of capturing data and making sense of it. A lot of the tools we looked at, including FarmMax and including the tools that Ravensdown and Balance have been working on, have been around making predictions that help people make either recommendations or decisions, and that's really powerful. And I think there's been some, again, a thread of discussion going through around, well, how do we then extend those services out? If you've got other crops you want to measure with space, how do you do that? Can we extend those services? If you've got some data that's in FarmMax or one of these other tools, how do we make it available? How do we make data flow into FarmMax? I think my other observation is that we're still at the stage where many of these tools, maybe space being an exception here, require the assistance of somebody, a specialist, to help interpret them, right? Whether that's a rep or an agri manager in a fertiliser company, and we know there's good reasons why we should be doing that, or a consultant to help you with FarmMax. And I'm not saying, we know those roles are essential and important, but if we're to move to support for adoption and use, we need to think about how we kind of leverage the time of those people, right? So that they're doing the things that only they can do, and that our tools and our systems are easier to use, so that specialists don't have to get involved at every step in the way. So I guess that's my kind of reflections on what we've talked about today. I hope that, like me, this has been of interest to you, that you've had your eyes opened to some interesting things that people have been doing and some opportunities. I think it's been great to have the input from the farmers and the practitioners to kind of ground truth what the problems are that we're trying to solve. And what we're hoping is that this conversation continues on. So if you're on Zoom or if you're here in the room, hopefully you've made some contacts or you've made some notes of people you should talk to, and we'd really encourage you to continue to do that. If there's any way that Rezare can facilitate those discussions for you, we're happy to do that as well. So thank you very much.